This video is now in session, and we cannot underestimate what may happen in New York's governor's race in this election cycle. Because even though New York, many people consider the state of New York as a very democratic state, it is heading in the same direction in terms of its political trends as New Jersey back in 2021. Now, if you remember that race, you'll remember that a lot of us were thinking that New Jersey was just going to be an easy state for the Democrats to keep because New Jersey has been a Democratic state for so long. But I did, like, as a I guess citizen in that region of the tri-state area, like, I kind of recognized that a lot of people were tired. A lot of Democrats were tired of the direction that their state was headed in. And in places like South Jersey, you had like the same kinds of coalitions that went against the Democrats in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and in Wisconsin back during the 2016 election. And because of that, it seemed as if that this race was going to be much more competitive than it was polled to be. Here you can see that the aggregate polling was 7.8% in the 2021 New Jersey governor's election, but in reality, Phil Murphy only won by around 3 points. And that is, again, because of a mix of you have South Jersey voters who are more blue-collar workers and who signify the forgotten ones. And then you also have suburban voters up in the northern areas of New Jersey, including Passaic and Bergen County, who were generally just tired that New Jersey taxes were so high in relation to the amounts of things that they got out of those taxes. Another issue, education. Many households in New Jersey care about education, similarly to the voters of New York, because one of the main attractions of New Jersey is their education system. They have one of the best in the nation, one of the most competitive, and the fact that there hasn't been an additional amount of resources put into that area, and the fact that you have seen that like New Jersey has been seeing declining quality of education has caused a lot of these voters to revolt. And then you finally have the issue of crime. There's no doubt that crime has been rising in the New York metropolitan region over the past 2 or so years. Obviously, a lot of those reasons are outside politicians' control, but ultimately, when crime is up, voters do respond by kicking out the incumbent party, which was why Phil Murphy was so close to losing. Now, given that New Jersey is like everything here, all of these factors in New Jersey, let's compare that to New York. So if we go to the 2020, or actually let's do the 2018 New York gubernatorial election. So I'm only going to use this election just as a way to show you a map of New York, but here you have suburban voters in Long Island who are incredibly fearful of crime because many of them are commuters to the 5 boroughs of New York City. You also have voters who care about education because these are wealthier upper middle class regions of New York that they live there because or at least families live there because they want their children to receive a high quality of education. And given that the pandemic has essentially set back the United States and even wealthy districts' academic performance, a lot of voters are concerned about that issue. And then you also have the same kinds of coalitions that you saw in South Jersey, here in the Catskills, and, well, somewhere in the Adirondacks, but that doesn't really matter as much for statewide races. But when it comes to the Catskills, you're talking about New York 17th District, 18th, 19th, 22nd District. Those kinds of voters do care about manufacturing and blue-collar issues. And given that New York has been trending more to the left and has been focusing more on social issues rather than economic issues, has caused a lot of these voters to essentially abandon Andrew Cuomo during the 2018 election and in the 2014 election. They never liked Andrew Cuomo because he was more of a left-wing stalwart than someone like Chuck Schumer, who in his election was able to get a lot of those counties because he paid attention to those voters. If we go to New York Senate election back in 2016, which was the last time he was up for election, you'll see that he won a ton of counties. And that's because, I mean, he is the majority leader of, or at that time, the minority leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate. So he was able to bring in a lot of cash for New York. But it's also because he cared about these voters, and he went around and pandering to these voters with like more economically focused policies compared to the 5 boroughs of New York, where he focused more on social issues. So now we have all of those factors here at play to help us figure out the state of this gubernatorial election. So right now, crime is going up in New York City, which means a lot of commuter workers are and white collar workers, which are typically the kinds of moderate suburban voters that you'll find, they're concerned. Education, same thing, suburban voters, they're concerned. And then you also have just a declining, or at least a stagnating economy in both New York City, which means that Democratic voters are less likely to turn out. And then you also have a decline in manufacturing industry in the Catskills, which means you have less blue-collar workers, or you have blue-collar workers that flee towards the Republican Party. So all of those factors point to this race being incredibly competitive, more competitive than a lot of these polls and a lot of the forecasts are saying. So here you can see polls have Hochul in the past month or so +6, +4, +1 even, although this is more, these polls have typically leaned more Republican than the actual result. But you have reputable pollsters such as Emerson College with +7, Quinnipiac University with only a +4, and that should be sounding alarm bells for the Democratic Party. And it is, because those margins should not be what a Democratic governor should be having in the state of New York. They should be having at least 10 points, double digits. But it is quite similar to what's happened in New Jersey back in the 2021 election. Now, why does this matter for the Democratic Party? Because, I mean, obviously, they're going to lose a governorship, which means that New York, for the first time in decades at this point, would no longer have a Democratic trifecta in the state government, but it also has reverberations down ballot, because what happens in the governor's race, a lot of people will take their vote to with the governor's race and then just like put it down ballot, just like the same party in every lower race possible. And I will say New York is much more likely to do split ticket voting compared to a state like New Jersey. But it's still, especially like in the Catskills, but it's still important to note these kinds of narrow margins, because they will have effects even if it might not be as big as in New Jersey. And considering that it's 2022, you have a bunch of House federal races that are up for re-election. You have Sean Patrick Maloney's race in New York's 17th district. It has suddenly gotten much more competitive as we have started to consider the effects of New York's competitiveness. You have New York's 18th district, where Pat Ryan just won an election, but he is in a very vulnerable seat that is that I believe is like not even is like less than D+7. You have New York's 19th district, Marcus Molinaro. He's up for election, although he's not the incumbent, but it is in the Catskills region. And then you also have New York's 22nd district, which should have been flippable for the Democratic Party, but now you see 538 rated as a 75% chance for Brandon Willian, because of these effects from the governor's races. And then again, Long Island, you have same thing. New York's 3rd district, lean Democratic. New York's 4th district, it says here likely Democratic, but other forecasters like the Cook Political Report, they say that this race is lean Democratic. And for us, right now we have it as likely Democratic, but that's because our model was made before a lot of these changes were happening in New York. But again, we cannot discount these changes because, I mean, it is very similar to what was happening in New Jersey back in 2021. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.